Everyone. I thought I'd pop on and make another little video tutorial. Hopefully it'll keep some of us busy and from going crazy while we're all stuck indoors. So I'm going to be painting today on this little mixed media art board. They're from Canson. They're just like nice, like hard little boards. If you've watched my videos before, you'll know that I love these little boards. And I don't have much of a plan. I'm going to be honest. I'm just going to kind of wing it here. So, I mean, you can use watercolor paper or canvas board for this as well. All of them will work. Yeah, so I'll dive right in. I'm going to use one of these little kitchen sponges. You can see I'm reusing this. This is actually dried paint on this side, but we've got some titanium white on there, acrylic paint. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of this color here. This is unbleached titanium, which is just sort of a lovely warm white. I'm just going to mix it with my titanium white just to lighten it a little bit, and just gonna use my sponge to add a nice thin layer. You could use a brush as well. I like to use a sponge for this because I feel like I can get a nice really thin base layer on the board. You know, particularly when I'm painting on paper or something, I like a thin base layer so that it dries quickly and I can move on. I'm not the most patient painter. There we go. Oh, and I should have mentioned that I did dampen my sponge before I put the paint on there. Not wet, just damp. You know, I can't squeeze any water out of this. It's just, but it is damp to the touch. All right, so we've got this nice, lovely, warm base on here. And now let's add a little bit of greenery in our background. So I'm going to grab this brush here. It's about a 1/3 of an inch, 1/2 inch filbert brush. And I'm going to get a little phthalo turquoise. And I'm using fluid acrylic for this, just what I have on hand. I'll put a couple of drops of that on my palette. And then I'm going to add one of my absolute favorite colors, quinacridone gold, to that. Quite a bit of gold because I want it to be a really green. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of raw umber and add a couple drops of that as well. And we'll mix that all up and see, we'll get this lovely dark green color. And I'm just going to take my brush and use some quick little back and forth motions to create sort of a green area in the background here. All right, well now once we've got it all sort of the blob where we want it, I'm going to put my brush aside. And I'm going to get my sponge that I had my titanium white on and my unbleached titanium. I'm just going to sort of wiggle that sponge and maybe we'll actually get a little bit more titanium white and a little more of the unbleached titanium onto the sponge, taking off the excess there. And I'm just going to come in on the edges. I'm going to start off the green and move towards the green and just blend in like so. And maybe even just a little bit more. Now I'm not going to wiggle up here. I'm going to blot, because I'd actually like to cover up some of that green. Make it look like there's sort of mistiness kind of over top of the green. You know, if I blend in, the green picks up and comes out of my sponge, but if I blot like this, it's just going to lay the paint down on top. And because I've been doing thin layers, when I do that, we're not going to end up, or it's not wet, the paint isn't too wet, so it's going to blend nicely. There we go. Now this is a good time, if you have yours, to kind of take a look. Do we like this heaviness down at the bottom? You know, is there a different orientation that might work better? I'm thinking I'm going to stick with my original orientation here. So now I'm going to grab another one of my filbert brushes, and we will get that beautiful quinacridone gold again. Just add a little bit to my palette up there. And to that, I'm going to add another favorite, quinacridone magenta, just like 2 drops of that. I just want to sort of deepen that gold and darken it, make it a little more of a beautiful orange rusty color, and isn't that gorgeous? Now I'm just gonna sort of decide where I want my sort of flower shape. So I'm gonna start in here, and maybe we've got one up here. And maybe you have a smaller one there. Maybe slightly bigger right here. And then I like to do odd numbers of flowers. Maybe we've got a nice big guy down here. And some blossoms. So I'm just really loosely deciding. Nothing's written in stone, it's just paint. We can paint over it if we don't like where we've placed something. But I think that looks pretty good for right now. Just gonna rinse my brush. And let's maybe get a little bit more of that quinacridone magenta. Just gonna put a little bit on my palette. I can put it pretty close to the other color there, that's fine. Yeah, a little raw umber. Mix it with that magenta, and it's gonna give us this really deep, dark, reddy purple color. I'm just gonna come in and add a bit of that to my centers of my flowers. And you'll see, but like I'm making, my flowers are just really blobs. They're not anything, they're not defined in any way right now. Let's make this one actually a bit bigger even. It's good to have a variety of sizes, I think, when you're doing this. So I'm gonna actually use this color to make these a bit bigger. And then I've got some of that orange on my palette still. We can get a bit more of that on the brush. There we go. Okay, now let's rinse this guy. Get it nice and clean. And now I'm going to get a little bit of titanium white. Load up that same size brush, it's just nice and clean now. And we'll come in and I'm just going to do some sort of rounded strokes, sort of defining those flowers. Now the paint is still wet, so as I do this, it does pick up that color, and my white is going to get diluted as we go. That's okay. I can do another layer on top. So we'll rinse that brush. And nice fresh dollop of that titanium white. And now see, we've got some nice lovely white in this flower, but you know, this one didn't really get as much. So let's add a little bit in there. And see how it's just sort of lightening the flowers really naturally. There we go. Now I think we could add in a little bit a little bit more greenery. So we've still got some of this lovely dark green on our palette. Just going to come down. And tap it in around the bases of the flowers. Now I don't want to really mix a lot with my flower, but if the flower touches the green, that's okay. We can add another little layer of petal over top of any green that's kind of gone on our flowers a little too much. There we go. All right, now this flower, something about it, it's just sort of feeling tucked into the roses a little. I kind of want to bring it out a bit. I'm going to get some titanium white. I'm going to mix it onto this sort of peachy color that we've already got on the palette here. And I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm not sure that that did what I wanted it to do. So let's get some green on here and a little bit more of the phthalo turquoise, our raw umber, and our quinacridone gold. I've not rinsed my brush. I'm going to leave the whites on there because I want to lighten this as we go. And that's created this beautiful shade of green. Let's just mute this flower right out of there. Little quick brush strokes. Let's just fill in most of that background with green. Maybe this flower becomes more of like a little blossom. And see how that just really just changed it instantly, right? That's why I like to kind of just go with it. Okay, now what I think I'm going to need to do now in order to not muddy this up is I'm going to need to let it sit and dry for a few minutes. Once it's dry, or at least mostly dry, I'll be able to apply another layer of paint over top and sort of enhance some of the flowers, clean up some of these edges of the flowers. We can add some highlights into these leaves and some darks and lights, and just really change up the finished piece. But we definitely want to let this dry before we do that. If I were to continue right now, I'm just going to end up with a big sloppy muddy mess. So set it aside, work on another piece, and I'll be right back. All right, so it's been a few minutes. Mine's still tacky, but it's mostly dry, so I'm confident to move on. I do recommend letting it dry more if you can, but I'm on limited time. Kids, of course, aren't at school, and so I've set them on their schoolwork, and I'm trying to get this piece done while they're busy. All right, so let's get a little bit more of our quinacridone magenta. I'm just going to add it up to that previous spot on my palette. And to it, we'll add a bit of the quinacridone gold and just a drop of the burnt, or raw umber, rather. And we'll mix that together. It's going to give us this beautiful, warm, reddy color. And I just want to add just a swipe of that into the centers of my flowers. Now, I had some thoughts over here while I was paused about how to sort of make this more, just more what I was hoping for. And I think I'm just going to create, there we go, some sort of blossom, a blossom type effect down there, and we'll get some green in there as well. Yeah, see, already that's sort of just shifted the composition and made it a little bit more interesting to look at. And we'll just tap this color into some other spots as well. There we go. Rinse my brush nice and clean. And a little bit of titanium white. And let's come up in, actually, you know what, I'm going to take my titanium white, I'm going to mix it into a little bit of that color we already had and create this sort of nice pinky rose color. I want a little bit more yellow in there, so I'm just going to get a little bit of my quinacridone gold, just one little drop there. That's why I like to use the fluid acrylics, is that it really allows me to control the amount. I find with the tubes I squeeze too hard. All right, and so some of these leaves, I want them to be a little more amalgamated with the green to be a little more amalgamated, not a hard line there. So I'm just gonna use this pinky color. And we'll come down into this there. And now that's quite pink. So let's get a little bit more of that quinacridone gold. I'm not going to rinse my brush because I do want a little bit of that pink in there, but I'm going to get a little bit of titanium white and mix it with the quinacridone gold. And maybe a tiny bit more of the magenta in there and create this sort of warm peachy gold color that then I can come in and just tap around. And rinse that brush. And then we'll go back in and get some more titanium white. And let's add some highlights back in. So particularly this guy got a little bit blobby up here. So we want to give it some more highlights. Something fell. And a little bit in here. And then let's go back to our unbleached titanium. And add a little bit to the palette. And I'm going to just add in some quick little strokes into where our greenery was, or is. And get a little bit of that green on the palette as well. I'm going to get a little bit of raw umber, add it to the green I've already mixed, just to darken it a little bit, maybe just a little bit more, and a little bit more quinacridone gold. Just want to create a little bit, something with a little bit more depth. There we go, that's what we needed. You know, I want to go even just a little bit darker, so let's get some of that phthalo turquoise on there. And the raw umber, I'm going to put it separately and use my brush just in that. There we go. All right. And then last, we're just going to sort of wrap it up here and get a little bit of titanium white on it. I've just picked up a smaller brush, nice and clean. And we can add in some spots to the center of our flowers if we like. You can also use this to add some more highlights to our flowers, and also even to add some softness to our leaves. You know, it got kind of, there's a lot happening up here. I'm going to take my sponge mute it down a little bit. Grab a little bit of this pinky color and just bring those flowers up there again. And there we go. Got a finished little flower piece, just something fun and simple. Again, I wasn't really doing this with too much thought this morning and we're on a bit of a time crunch, but I thought it might be fun, and I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and yeah, I hope to make another one soon. Thanks for watching. Happy painting!